Hey, what's up, everybody? Happy 2022. 2022. It's been a big deal. We're excited about this year. Refresh. We've been planning. We've been plotting. We got things coming up. Lots of content this year. Lots of worship nights, and make sure you keep in touch with what's going on with us. Make sure you like the Facebook page and follow us. This is the first video of the year for us. And what we're gonna do is something a little different this year. Every month, I'm gonna do every first Monday. So every first Monday of the month, you're guaranteed some great content. This can be more conversational, like we're gonna be today, or it can be an interview, it can be a teaching. But either way, every first Monday, something fun from the Refresh team to you. And hopefully that supports you and your team, your people, and your leadership, all right? So make sure you tune in and you're part of that. First worship night. You guys have the dates for that? Yeah, check it out. So let me start with, hi, I'm Matt.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
We're all Matt.
So, hi, I'm Matt, and for those of you who don't know me, and I have some awesome people here. My friends, some of the Refresh team. Miss Shay Guy, because that's a thing. That's a thing we do now. And the Dr.
Wow.
Joshua Blake.
Why wasn't I a doctor?
I don't know. Choices. So look, as you can tell, this is super laid back. We're not putting a whole lot of pre-production into this one. This is just us talking about a topic that we had brought up that we wanted to talk about. So thought it would be helpful to you and just be a part of the conversation. Do we have that date for?
It's not coming up quickly.
All right, cool.
Sorry, guys.
So no,
the first one, it's in my calendar.
that's what we need.
That's what we need.
I just want to make sure. So our first worship night is going to be in Columbus. We're starting to work on it right now. And we're excited about it because it's going to be dope.
Super dope.
But want to invite you out, be a part of it. It is March bleh.
The 18th.
March 18th.
I was thinking 8th, but you should say so.
You were close.
You should have spoke up.
March the 8th. That's the day.
At 10 days.
Plus 10.
So March 18th, mark the calendars, be a part. We'd love to see you there. And like I said, it's just the first of quite a few things that we're planning this year. And to stay up to date, make sure you like, follow, subscribe, do all the cool things that the kids do.
And the adults.
And the adults. All right, so here's the first thing. We were talking about worship culture. We were talking about worship culture. And one of the questions that Josh had kind of proposed was, I think it was like, how do you build a worship culture, or like, what is a healthy worship culture? And I think that was the conversation that we wanted to jump into. First off, worship culture, what is that, right? Like, what does a healthy worship culture look like? So in order for you to build it and mold it, shape it, first, let's just figure out, what do you guys think when you think of like a healthy worship culture? First things that pop into your mind, what are you thinking?
I guess I just think of culture, the word culture, and that really is something that is collective. So it's, how does your collective environment approach worship? So it's some of those common themes when it comes to that topic or that way of life. I don't know if those are details, but that's kind of what I would say.
I'll kind of piggyback off of what she's saying and say, like, it's a collective like lifestyle that's taught, and it is led by your leadership and by your family, but it's a lifestyle. Just like the culture of your house, like it's something that doesn't stop on Sunday, and when you go home, it stays with you. So I think it's the utmost important part of worship is to have a culture and to say, this is how we worship, this is how we go after Jesus, this is what we do, and kind of define that for people, especially younger people, and giving them a vision to what it looks like to go after God and worship and to see what it does. You know what I mean?
That's good.
I agree. So for me, when I think about culture, and even in the worship context or in culture, just as a word, I think it's the things you allow and what you don't allow, right? So it's what you allow, what you don't allow when you're not thinking about it. So to me, that's what culture is. Culture.
Can't be professional with that.
No, I think that's what it is. Like it's the things you allow and the things you don't allow when you're not thinking about it.
Yeah.
And in a worship culture, so your house has a culture, right? Like the house that you live in has a culture of like, this is what we do. This is how we speak to one another. This is how we get ready in the morning. This is the routines, right? These are the things that are normal for us, right? And that's building a culture. The more you enforce those things, right? Whether they're the things you want to happen or enforce the things you don't want to happen. So the correction that takes place as well. All of those things over time shape a culture.
That's really good.
And everyone begins to move into alignment. Right? And that's what that is. It's alignment. That's what culture is. And so worship, when I think about worship culture, it's the same exact thing. It's what do you allow? What do you not allow?
Really
and what happens when you're not thinking about
That's really good.
it? Right?
That's really good.
So scrap what we said.
No.
Here's the definition of worship culture. No,
From
just
Matt.
kidding.
No, that's what I
No,
think
that's super good.
I think that's what to me that's what I think about. And I think, what are you trying to accomplish? So when I think about like what's a healthy worship culture, now we're talking about it's not what's good and what's bad, right? It's not what's trendy and what's not.
Right.
We're talking about healthy versus unhealthy.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is, I think, a little bit of a better even playing field, right? Because we all have different denominations, right? We come from different backgrounds, different places. Every church house is different, right? They all have their own vision and mission and things that their values vary from house to house. And so I think every worship culture probably varies if it's aligned with the mission and vision of that house. That would make sense. So I think if we take away all of those preferences, which is probably the best word I can think of. If you take away the preferences, then some of the foundation of all of it that is similar, that brings us together, is healthy versus unhealthy. Right? We can look at that and just say health versus not healthy. And so, are there things that come to your mind? And even if you're thinking about it, like I'd love to see what you guys are sharing in the chat or whatever it is. But like, what's healthy worship culture versus unhealthy worship culture?
So this may seem very basic, but I think what he and I said initially is healthy. Is it corporate? Is it a collective thought, a collective way of thinking, a collective way of doing? And is it something that is done across the demographic of your organization without thinking it? Which means it's a part of the culture and they're not just checkbox actions. So I think that's the first thing. Is it something defined? And is it collective? I think that would be any type of culture. Is it healthy? Is it collaborative?
I think that for me personally, if I was to say, to me, within a culture has to evolve with the times. Like
that's really
in your
good.
house, if it's just you and your wife, your husband and the wife, it's just that. But then when you have a baby, the culture evolves, and you have two, the culture evolves. So to me, within a healthy culture has to evolve with what's happening in the world. Who do you have? But then I think that there has to be a standard. I think if we look at the biblical truths, that has to be the standard. You know what I mean? Like Jesus is the standard, heaven's the standard. What does that look like? You know what I mean? But then the culture, it can't be like a tradition. You know what I mean? Where we this is the type of music we sing. We don't touch nothing else, but this is what we do. But there can be there has to be a balance of, okay, we did the old stuff, but we can't throw that away. You know what I mean? But bring in the new stuff. Allow for what I'm thinking is a creative place of expression. You know what I mean? Because it's like, if you're creating a worship culture, what is worship? It's expressing ourselves to Jesus. You know what I mean? And if you don't create a place where people can go, God, I feel like our hearts are to express ourselves to God. And if we can create a place where we can go, God, my entire heart, my entire being, I'm expressing that to you, but I'm making room for you to do that in your way.
Right.
Like whether you're a rapper, whether you're a singer, whether you're a dancer, a painter, we're just gonna, even an architect, or you just want to design the building and make it look amazing for God. There's multiple different areas, but it's like creating that space for those people and moving and maturing based off of who you have and what you have. You know what I mean? But I think what's healthy is creating space, like allowing for change and allowing for the like just moving forward and not being stuck in one way because it just gets stale. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to me, that's what's healthy. It's like having a standard, but then creating space and allowing things to mold and mature and just move forward. That's to me what healthy culture looks like.
That's good. I was thinking about the to piggyback off of what you're saying, the why doesn't change,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
You said like foundational truth, Jesus.
Yeah, that's it.
Doesn't change.
Yeah,
The how should,
yeah,
right? The how can change because the same things you were doing then may not work now, right? And that's also, I think, taps into serving a creative God,
yeah,
right? The God who created creativity.
yeah,
And so thinking outside the box or thinking bigger or broader should be normal
yeah,
as long as the why doesn't change.
yeah.
So figuring out, I think like what's really important is to try to figure out what are the whys.
Mm-hmm.
Like for your house, these are the things that we're just like, we're committed to these things,
Right.
right? And typically that would even go, obviously mission, vision, but values,
Mm-hmm.
even stuff like that. These are things that we really hold at high regard.
Yeah,
And then the how is the creativity of the culture you want to build.
mm-hmm.
How do we want to do that, right? So I think that's really important too. But the other thing I wanted to say was I felt like culture starts with you.
Mm-hmm.
Expound upon that.
So culture starts with you. So as I'm speaking to the leaders,
Yeah,
so as a leader, culture doesn't start with my team.
mm-hmm.
Culture doesn't start with a congregation.
Mm-hmm.
Culture starts with me as the leader,
Yeah,
right? And that goes back to what we said, like what you allow and what you don't allow.
yeah,
And so everything falls from the top,
yeah,
right?
Mm-hmm.
Not like everything. And so if you're, let me tell you, hey, worship leader, if you're unhappy with the worship culture
mm-hmm.
where you're at, you have a lot to do with that.
Yeah,
Facts.
So it has to start with you saying, okay, what do I want to see
mm-hmm.
and what do I need to do in order to get that,
Right.
Yeah,
right? What do we need to stop? What do we need to start?
yeah,
So I think that's a real practical way to look at it is just, it's so easy to blame it on
somebody else.
the people.
Right.
That is true.
Right? Like it's so easy to be like, our people just don't do that.
They just
Right.
sing like
And our people don't sing like that. They don't dance like that. And they don't
Right.
and all of those are outward expressions. But culturally, like, are your people excited about worship? Like,
Right.
do your people understand what it really is that they're doing?
Yeah.
Do they understand the warfare that comes with it? Do they understand the intimacy that comes with worship? Like, I think having a full understanding of what worship is and how we have the many avenues of expression,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
that allows people to open the door and test the waters
Mm.
of different expressions of worship.
And
Yeah.
not to interrupt, but I think that is probably one of the first steps is really defining worship.
Mm.
So we're taking two words together, right? I think we've talked very clearly about culture, what
Mhm.
establishes culture, but you can't establish a worship culture without establishing what worship is, because a lot of people assume when you say worship, oh, we're talking about the praise team, we're
Mhm.
talking about song, but really I think having that definition that worship is foundationally about Jesus,
Mhm.
and in that space that
Yeah.
you create, what is it that you're trying to obtain? So I think in all of the definitions that we have put out there is something that needs to be established for each house, because it is going to vary.
Mm.
Jesus is going to stay the same, right? Intimacy is going to stay the same. So you have to define some of those biblical core ideas about worship, and then from there establish what does our house believe about that.
Yeah.
Because we are all part of a very creative house where that may not be the take on another house, and that's okay because it can still be worship.
Yeah.
So you have to really define what is foundational for the principle of worship.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So then we can define the culture of worship
Yeah,
for
that's
us. They're two very different concepts. One is biblical and stays the same. The other can vary and should evolve because it's cultural. So I think that's really important.
That is really good.
Why y'all get so quiet? They got so quiet.
She got us thinking.
I'm listening and I'm thinking as well, like, we're all very musical. And I'm thinking about the people that are not.
Right.
And I guess this video, this content has less to do with music and has more to do with devotion and the magnification of who God is.
That's really good.
And so when we're talking about like a worship culture and even just worship in and of itself, I want to speak to the non-musical people who say like, well, I'm not really into clapping, I'm not a singer, I don't play no instruments. Cool. Well, worship was never
just for the singer.
Just for the singer, right? It was
Yeah.
never for the musically inclined.
Right.
But it was for the people that were fully devoted.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? For the people who wanted to put God above everything else. It was for the people who wanted to make God bigger than the situation. It was like praise, singing praise to someone is the same thing as me saying, you're amazing, you're doing a great job.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm singing his praises.
Right.
Right? And I'm shining light on how great he is
Right.
in a room. And so I think that like if we look at that with our relationship with God, man, I don't have to be a great singer to sing the praises of God.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that has so much to do with our spirit and much less to do with our talent.
Yeah, that's true.
So I guess maybe that's a question that even worship leaders have to answer. What is a simple definition of worship for you guys? Like, what would you say if somebody said, how do you define worship? Like, what would you guys say?
Honestly, I would say gratitude. I would say gratitude. Like, because to me, worship doesn't end. It's not isolated. You know what I mean? It doesn't have a beginning or end. It's like when I'm at work, it's worship because I'm grateful for what God's given me, so I'm going to work that. You know what I mean? And it's like, to me, worship even falls in the idea of tithes and offerings. You know what I mean? It falls in the idea of giving back to God. It's prayer, it's devotion, reading your Bible, serving. You know what I mean? So to me, it's like, if I was to say what worship is, it's gratitude for all God's done in your life. And it's like, am I grateful for my job? Am I grateful for my family? Am I grateful for my friends? Am I grateful for all these things that you're doing in my life? And it's honestly what I could say is it's noticing God presently in every day.
Wow.
And using that as the God, am I going to do this? Or am I going to, like the right and wrong, like you were saying, like, God, I'm going to notice you presently, so I'm going to be grateful. You know what I mean? Or God, I'm going to notice you presently, so I'm going to complain. You know what I mean? But to me, it's gratitude because, like, if you think about it, in the Bible, it says that the angels, every time they see God, they stop and they say, holy. You know what I mean? So think about the gratitude. Like, every moment for all of eternity, they're stopping like, holy, holy, holy. And that's just gratitude because, like, man, we're this close. You know what I mean? And so to me, I feel like as a human, we have this this unique opportunity to show a different level of gratitude with God when we're not in heaven. You know what I mean? We have this opportunity to worship him with our lives that nobody else has. You know what I mean? So I feel like if I was to define worship and somebody was like, yo, like, you're a worship leader, you sing, like, what do you think it is? And I'm like, it has nothing to do with music. Honestly, music is only the expression that my culture, what I've cultivated throughout the week. You know what I mean? When I'm Monday through Friday working and praying and living my life, and then I come on Sunday and then that's just the built-up expression, the fruit that comes from the seed of my gratitude to God. You know what I mean? And I feel like everybody has that in their own right, but it's just expressed in different ways, if that makes sense.
I love all of it.
Yeah.
I love all of it. I don't even know what I could add. It's anything I would add would be along those lines, especially to the person who is not musical.
Right.
Yeah.
That worship is gratitude. Worship, especially worship in song, for the non-musical person, it's really just so that it doesn't get out your head. Like what you remember during the week.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so like if you're a person that's like, I'm not really into music like that, whatever. Don't let the music section of your walk with God, you know, deter you from worship, because it is purposeful. The reason why the hymns are the hymns is because that's what got people through that time.
Yeah.
Right? It was just a reminder in a time where you couldn't get in front of a pastor. You could sing a song.
Yeah.
That would reset you and get you aligned again.
That's so good.
And so it's just I mean, that's what I think, you know what I'm saying? And so to me, like, that's
I never thought of it that way
so
ever in life ever. Continue.
Yeah, I mean that's to me, and like I said, it's so easy because we're all musicians, we're all singers, we're all like we're a part of the musicality of worship.
Right.
And so I think that's easy.
Yeah.
You know, to me, it's like singing songs. Heck yeah, I'm about it.
Yeah.
I always think about the person who's like, I listen to talk radio in the car. I'm not a big song person. And that's what I mean by like, just don't throw that part of your walk away, just because it may not be your thing. There is something very spiritual about singing songs, singing praise, singing glory to, you know, all of those things to God, that really, I think, kind of recheck your heart and recheck your mind and realign you with the word, which is kind of the point.
So, yeah, that's interesting. But the more I hear you guys talking about it, like, I agree. Let me say that. I agree. But I think worship is a byproduct. No, I think, worship is a byproduct of gratefulness. Because if someone was to say, what's the definition of worship to you? I would say knowing. Because if you think of the few times that we use that term outside of when it comes to God, oh, she worships the ground, he walks on, oh, I just worship. Like, it is such an in-depth knowing of something that respect level goes through the roof. It almost isolates it from commonality, right? You two are two of the closest people that I know. I could go in about your attributes. I could list a laundry list of things that I love about you guys, that I appreciate, that I respect. Of course, I wouldn't want to put worship on that because that is such a sacred word, but I couldn't go in about a lot of people that way. So for me, worship is really the understanding of who God is, and then everything that comes from that.
That's so good.
Gratefulness, love, longing, like all the things that come from me knowing all these attributes of God. And you can't have that without being in proximity to him. And I think that's why it gets confusing, because we have really intimate moments that are worship moments. And it's those times that God is really showing a lot of himself. And if we, talk Bible, that outer gates, inner gates, holy of holies, that innermost places where they worship, because that's where God revealed himself. So to me, worship is just a knowing God. And then anything creatively, emotionally, lifestyle-wise, that comes from knowing him.
It just flows from that.
Yep.
That's kind of thinking on that, and you're saying the inner gates, outer gates. It's like, I feel like what Jesus came to do was give us an inner gates experience.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I think that like, if you really think about it, when you talk to the woman by the well, and he's like, some people worship in the synagogue, some people do this. He's like, those who really know me are going to worship in spirit and in truth. You know what I mean? And I feel like that was a yearning. You know what I mean? Like, and it's funny because we always find different parts of that. Like, oh, she had 5 husbands. Oh, she did. But we really don't know about the yearning that Jesus was displaying in that moment. You know what I mean? I wonder how he said that to her. Because, like, it was kind of like a you got this all wrong moment. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's where we're at right now. I think that's where we've tripped up as a church culture, where we're like, some of us worship in the synagogue, some of us worship here, but God's like, no, y'all worship in spirit and in truth, where it's a knowing every day. And if you think about Paul and Silas when they're in prison, they were in prison. They're like, Jesus, you know what I mean? It was a knowing. Like, you got to know God to worship in prison. You know what I mean? And like, if you really think about it,
You better know him.
you got to know. You got to know. Because if
Yeah.
you're in prison, most people are like, I'm an idiot. What did I do to get myself here? How did I do that? But they're like, God, you're just good. You're like, I don't even care about what the situation looks like. This is a moment where I can just praise you because I know you. You know what I mean? And I feel like it's kind of what you're saying is like, I feel like if we're expressing that, it's like worship is your devotional.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't spend time in the Word, if you don't spend time in knowing God through His Word, then you will never be able to express that because you don't know who He is.
Think about this. So we're talking about culture,
Yeah.
right? I don't know. I'm getting, because I think talking it out makes it clear even for me as
Yeah.
a worshiper. So I'm just like, oh yeah, that's what we do. Like Old Testament, they had a culture of worship. Like it was
Yeah.
built into their actual humanity.
Yeah.
From the beginning, this is how we remember. We build an altar here. We worship because God did something specific for us here. They
Yeah.
had, it was built into the culture that we worship because He was the core of everything.
Yeah.
Then think about that last book of the Bible. God went silent.
Mm-hmm.
So then here comes Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And He reconnects us to God by showing us Him in the flesh.
Mm-hmm.
So we worship through Jesus because He's how we see God now.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
It's
true.
not, He's our worship culture almost.
Yeah.
Because He's the fleshly idea of what used to be cultural.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. That's so good.
So He's unknowing. So knowing Jesus is to worship. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it could go in a big circle. All right. Sorry.
No, I love it. I love it. And I'm just reminded that, like, you cannot take people where you've never been.
That's good.
And we're talking about if worship is knowing God, then I can only worship Him to the limit of my
No.
what I know,
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
right? And so, like, if I'm not really getting to know who God is,
Mhm.
right? If I'm not really walking with Him Monday through Saturday, Sunday's awkward
Yeah.
Facts.
because I'm in a room with a stranger.
Yeah. That's crazy. It's funny because we've all been there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Right,
crazy.
that's why it's
We're all
like, oh man, that hurt.
Have you ever, and we could be honest, like I'll start with me, okay?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Have you ever felt like you didn't know what else to say
Mm,
Yeah.
mm,
on how to lead people into the presence of God?
mm.
And as we're talking, let's be honest, it's because we didn't know enough about who He was
Yeah.
to convey Him to others.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I have the responsibility as a leader and as a worshiper, as a worship leader,
Yeah.
to lead people into the presence of God, but I don't know Him well enough to do that. I'm a horrible guide. I've never been here before.
Yeah.
Right?
That's crazy. That's-
Right? Or I can lead you up to a certain point.
Yeah,
So I know this much about Him.
that part.
I know this much about Him, and I can get us through a service. But
Yeah.
once it starts taking a turn,
Facts.
I'm like, I don't know what to
I've
say.
never
Y'all,
been there.
I've
Yeah.
never been there.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's like.
Yeah.
And so even for, I think, the corporate worshiper, you really can only engage in corporate worship to the level of your personal, intimate worship,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and so if I'm not in an intimate relationship with Jesus on Monday at home,
Mm-hmm.
Sunday at church
Awkward.
is weird
Yeah, that's so true. That's
because we haven't talked.
I ain't seen you in a minute.
I mean, we're jumping to the bedroom. I don't even know your name for real. I don't know all your names.
Right, right.
Like, you the Rose of what? The Prince of huh? Who's Sharon? Right, like, but that, I'm telling you, the intimacy that happens, I think, not all the time, but the intimacy that can happen in a corporate setting can be awkward for a person who doesn't know His name.
Wow, that's so good.
Or hasn't attributed things to Him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like that's actually connected to what she was saying, like the idea of the Old Testament. If we look at that and we look at, I think it's in Deuteronomy where Joshua and Caleb are like, yo, this is what God's done for us. Like, they're making it intimate. They're taking the knowing of the past. Like, hey, put out those stones across the river so that our children and our children's children can know the God that we serve. You know what I mean? And I feel like it's the experience that creates the expression. You know what I mean? Like, we
Ooh,
like
that part.
experience God.
That's really good.
this is a stone. You know what I mean? And then we express. You know what I mean? Whatever that looks like. It could be just faith.
Yeah.
It could literally be, oh man, you're bankrupt right now, man. Look where God took me. I'm gonna tell you this. I'm gonna tell you my testimony. You know what I mean? And like, to me, those experiences are stones where we put in people's lives. Like here's a stone. It's that's the faith. I'm gonna put that there so you can, when you think you're down, look back at that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And remember who he was.
Yeah.
And go, okay, God, you're gonna take me here because you did this for me. You made me cross the Jordan. You made me cross the Red Sea.
Right.
You took me out of Egypt. Oh, you fed me in the wilderness? Oh man, look, this ain't nothing. And I feel like even for like David's expression was experience. I fought the lion. I fought the bear. How are you different, Goliath? You know what I mean? Then he gets to being a king. He's like, I fought the lion. I fought the bear.
Right.
I fought Goliath. I've been a warrior. I've destroyed this many armies. I'm this man, but you're the one who took me there. I'm gonna put a temple right next to me because there ain't no way else I'm gonna get this. You know what I mean? Right. And I feel like if we take that and we go, I survived cancer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna set that stone down, God, and I'm gonna remember that. Like and even if you're not a person that remembers things, put something there. Take one of them clothes. Take something. God, you did this for me. You know what I mean? Set a stone somewhere in your house. Like, God, we're gonna put this here. You know what I mean? Like, we put up pictures of our weddings. We put up pictures of our childbirth. That's a stone of God's goodness. You know what I mean? God, you took me here. God, you did this. God, you did that. And I think that if we start expressing God like that, then it becomes a culture in your house. Like, Mom, why is that picture? Man, let me tell you what God done did. They're like, dang it, you're gonna tell me the story 1,000 times. But it's like, let us take our knowing and make it a corporate knowing. Make room for somebody else to come in and teach them who God is. You know what I mean? And then we have a visual. That's who God is. He's that man. He's Jehovah Rapha. I never knew. You know what I mean?
I was just gonna encourage you that we talked about it starting with the leader, but I also believe that to build a culture, it takes the team.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And so for the leader out there, you may feel like you're the only one who's thinking like this. You may feel like you're the only one who gets it, or you're the only one that wants to see that change. I guarantee you there's people on your team that are looking at you, right? And they're learning and they're leaning in, they want to know more. And I think you can point out those people on the team, right? So if you're someone who's like, I want to make a change, I would say grab hold of the one person that wants to move with you.
Yeah. Right?
And watch it begin to trickle. Right? So it's just, if you really want a healthy worship culture, if you really want to go after that in any culture capacity, if you want to create that, I think you got to start as the leader and you got to start grabbing people where they're at.
Yeah.
And saying, pick it up and follow me. Let's go. Let's make a change.
Yeah.
Let's do something different.
Yeah.
Right? And eventually you'll see that there's 12 people behind you, but you start with one.
Yeah.
And so just be encouraged in that way. I don't know, is there anything else that you guys wanted to say? I mean, I know we might be short on time right now, but is there anything else that you want to say pertaining to this? I thought this was great. This is really good stuff.
Yeah. I think throughout the conversation are probably some very distinct ways of creating a healthier culture. This is something I always ask you when you present information. If you're not in a healthy culture, what would you suggest that they impose in order to create a healthy culture?
Yeah, I think this is probably the hardest when you're a leader who's not the leader.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're what people would call a second cheerleader or a third cheerleader, or you might feel like you're the 100th cheerleader, but you're not the first cheerleader, right? The person at the top. I think that I think you have to have a conversation with that first cheerleader and say, this is what I'm feeling. I think we need to change these things. These are concerns for me. This is the direction I think would be healthy for us as a church, right? Like, or as an organization, whatever capacity that we're talking about leading. And because at the end of the day, you can want and desire a different culture, but if you're not on the same page as the first chair leader, I don't know if it matters how many people you rally behind you if the person in front of you is not going the same direction. And so, and so I hope that is not a discouragement. I hope it's an encouragement to you to say it starts with the leader. And if I want to see change, it starts with me as a leader meeting with the leader, right? And that's the only way that if you guys are in unity and say, I agree, let's do that. Let's make a change. Let's do that. Cool. Now you're in alignment with the house, right? You're not a rogue. You're going the same direction that even the leader is saying, let's go there. I'm going with you, right? Yeah. And now you can look behind you and say, who's with us? Yeah. And so I think that's the first thing to do. When I think about change that I want to see, I need to start looking at in front of me, like where are we going in front of me?
Yeah. I would say, I think I kind of have already alluded to it, like make worship practical, not musical. I think that's one of the takeaways from everything we've talked about. Worship is not just this musical moment, right? It's, and I guess the only example I have is as a worship leader musically, but a lot of times, and you can attest to it, I will say, how do we take this song, right, which is seemingly someone else's, right, and make it practical for us to worship. You know, the lyrics that I can connect to as an adult, you know, when God has done these things for me, how do I relay that in this environment that is a stone, right? I love that analogy. That's amazing. But you can do that in any environment. If I'm raising a leader of, you know, Bible school teachers or Sunday school teachers, what in this material can you connect to from your walk with God? You know, how can you make that relevant to you? Because anything relevant to you, you can passionately speak on.
But you could only operate out of the level of your connection.
Right.
What you know.
That's it. So I agree with that. That's very good.
This is a hard one because I've never been in leadership in terms of worship. And I'm trying to see, like, in my head.
You've never been in leadership of a team. In terms of worship. Yeah,
but for me personally, I feel like even though it starts with the leader, you as long as there's a space, you have a say. You know what I mean? And to me, the brilliance of God can be shown by one person.
Yeah.
And to me, the light of God can be shown by one person. And it's like a fire starts with a spark. You know what I mean? And if you can be a spark, fight that.
That's
you know what I mean? If you think about Joshua, he sat by the mountain around dry people worshiping different gods, and he was like, Moses is up there, I feel something. I'm gonna sit right here. You know what I mean? Find that place to sit. Like, go sit somewhere where God is. You know what I mean? And it's like, maybe it's not your time to be exalted as a leader. Maybe it's not your time to be seen as a leader, but go find where God is and sit there. Even if things aren't going well around you, if you think, God, you're failing me, nah, I'm gonna sit there. I'm gonna find where you are. I'm gonna see that this is my connection. I'm gonna sit there. Even if you don't have a voice, just sit. And God's gonna move things the way you need it to be. Even for David. David was called, sent back, and he sat. And then he was called again to worship, and he brought deliverance. So it's like, if you sit there and wait on the Lord and trust him, he's gonna do what he said he's gonna do. You know what I mean? But he'll always honor he'll always honor the gift. Like Cain and Abel, he honored the gift. You gave the best that I could say. I can't take that. I can take this though. You know what I mean? And if you just believe that, God, you're gonna honor the gift, you're gonna honor my way, but you're gonna also honor our relationship. And that's what matters. You know what I mean? The knowing. Then to me, as a person who is just leading people in worship, if I'm just sitting and knowing, God, I know you. You know what I mean? And I'm just going to be a part of this. Let me just be one piece. And I don't have to be the leader. I don't have to be the driving force. Just let me be a piece. Eventually you're going to get there because God's going to do what he's going to do, regardless of the people that, you know, if you got to move people, whatever you got to do, he's going to do it. Right. So you got to be peace and just wait.
That's good. That's good. All right. Well, look, thank you. Thank you guys. That was awesome. It really was. Make sure you tune in every first Monday. There will be new stuff, new conversations like this, new interviews, things like that. We want you to be a part. So check us out, join us, be a part in March. Fun
The
things coming.
18th, not the 8th.
Not the 8th. I was wrong. It's okay. 18th.
And more to come. Happy 2022. Lego.
Let go.